Welcome to the third week of lectures in the Health and Comfort in Buildings course, which will be on indoor air quality. My name is Philomela Bluizen, and in this lecture you will learn about reception and health effects of indoor air. Indoor air quality is determined by its sources, the distribution of their pollutants in the space, and how the receiver is exposed to these pollutants over time. We perceive air with our nose, which contains the senses with which you can perceive air quality yourself. The nose comprises two nostrils with smelling organs. In each nostril you can find one patch of yellowish tissue in the dome of the nasal cavity, named the olfactory epithelium. Two types of nerve fibers are embedded in this tissue, which endings receive and detect volatile molecules, one for smell, the olfactory sense, and one for irritation, the trigeminal nerve. The endings of the trigeminal nerve are located all over the nasal respiratory lining, not only in the olfactory epithelium. Together they form the common chemical sense. On being stimulated by pollutants, the olfactory nerve endings and the trigeminal nerve endings send signals to the brain, where the signals are integrated and interpreted. The result of this process is called perceived air quality. Now, while some people are not able to smell at all, they are called anosmic, others are able to detect certain compounds at parts per trillion level, PPT level. When you breathe in air through the nose or mouth, the temperature and water vapor content of the air is adjusted and large particles are removed. Then the air moves on to the pharynx, the throat, the larynx, and enters the trachea, a long tube, which branches into two bronchial tubes, or primary bronchi, that go to the lungs. In the lungs, the primary bronchi branch off into even smaller bronchial tubes, or bronchioles, which end in the alveoli, or air sacs. Smaller particles have the characteristic of a gas, and larger particles are too heavy to stay suspended and will not be inhaled. The sizes that can be inhaled and reach the lung cells are most interesting with respect to health effects from fine particles. In those alveolar sacs, the gas exchange with blood takes place. The oxygen of the inhaled air passes through the walls of the air sacs and blood vessels and enters the bloodstream. At the same time, carbon dioxide produced passes into the lungs and is exhaled. While larger particles are too heavy to stay suspended and will not be inhaled, of the sizes that can be inhaled and reach the lung cells, the ultrafine or nanoparticles can together with oxygen pass the membrane of the lung cells, alveoli, and in this way reach our organs via our blood. We have approximately 30 million alveoli in our lungs, with a total of about 85 square meter alveolar surface available for gas exchange with blood, and therefore also for these nanoparticles. Once in our lungs and organs, these nanoparticles can cause oxidative stress in lungs, eyes, brain, and in all organs. Oxidative stress occurs when there is an excess of free radicals. They steal electrons over antioxidant defenses. Removal of electrons from cells through oxidation can create highly reactive oxygen species. Oxidative stress can damage cellular proteins, membranes, and genes, and can lead to systemic inflammation. At a higher level of oxidative stress, cytotoxic effects may induce cell death. By the way, oxidative stress is also responsible for burning your skin by the sun, or when too loud noise ruptures the eardrum in your ears. Nevertheless, air pollution is probably the most important cause for oxidative stress indoors. But air pollution is responsible for more mechanisms. Air pollution can cause all sorts of health effects and can trigger several stress mechanisms. Fine dust can cause inflammation. Radon and asbestos fibers can cause lung cancer. Several VOCs can cause annoyance to toxic reactions, and several phthalates of certain plastics can cause a whole range of effects that are still hard to grasp. These are the so-called endocrine disruptors. Specific chronic respiratory diseases and disorders caused by air pollution are, for example, COPD, asthma, allergic rhinitis, and hay fever. While COPD is a chronic respiratory disorder that is usually progressive and associated with an inflammatory response of the lungs to noxious particles or gases, asthma is a permanent infection in the lungs. This means that there are always small infections present in the lungs that can cause several complaints. Asthma complaints can occur when people inhale certain compounds that trigger a response, such as several allergens, smoke, fumes, or pollutions. Allergic rhinitis is a name for an allergic reaction of the upper airways, around the nose. This reaction can be caused by several allergens from both biological and chemical origin. Then hay fever is an allergic disorder. The immune system of our body overreacts to the presence of pollen coming from grass, trees, etc. Besides all those diseases and disorders, there are several building-related symptoms that have been related to exposure of air pollutants, such as symptoms of eyes and nose, the upper airway-related symptoms, tiredness and headaches. In the past, if several occupants in a building were suffering from one or more of these symptoms, and no specific illness could be assigned, this was diagnosed as sick building syndrome. Now, in the next lectures of this week, you will learn more about the parameters of indoor air, several pollutants and sources, specifically SARS-CoV-2, and strategies to control indoor air quality, but also the home questionnaire you were given the opportunity to complete in the first week of this course. Thank you for your attention and looking forward to see you the next time.